This is a household can of Pam that many of you are probably familiar with. I bought this many mornings ago, specifically for this speech, in order to relay some information to my fellow classmates. One thing that you might know about this can of Pam, in which there is another version that is twice as tall as this, is that in this can of Pam, according to the serving size, there are 0 calories, 0 trans fats. Also, it says that there's 0 cholesterol, 0 sodium, 0 carbs, and there's no protein. But the thing is that I learned in biology that oils are fats, and I'm wondering where they went. One thing that you might not have noticed about this can of Pam is that in this can of Pam there are 351 servings. In this can of Pam, a serving size is dictated as 1/3 of a second of a spray. Who here can count to 1/3 of a second? It is for this reason that I believe the United States federal government should move to expand the parameters of the National Education Labeling Act, hereforth represented as the NELA, and completely ban what is known as rounding down and mandate all restaurants modify menus in order to include the amount of calories, fat, and sodium on each menu item in the same size and font as the price. In order to begin to explain my argument, I need to tell you exactly what the NELA is. In America before the 1950s, there was a common illness known as rickets. This disease was simply caused by a deficiency in vitamin D. In response, because one of the major reasons for why this deficiency occurred in so many individuals was because nobody knew where to find the vitamin D. There were no nutrition labels. In response to this, in 1935, Congress passed a law that allowed the FDA to mandate that all food have nutrition labels on it. The point of these nutrition labels was to inform the public of exactly what was in food. According to the NELA, a serving size is supposed to dictate according to the amount a person would eat in one sitting. Who here eats 1/3 of a can of a second of a spray? In this can, according to nutritiondata.com, there are 1,000 calories. I promise you, 1,000. You should be able to multiply and figure out exactly what is in anything, any food item that we eat, such that if I were to go buy a package of cookies and it said that there are 1.5 grams of fat in each cookie, and I decided to eat 6 cookies, I should be able to do the math. However, we all learned in the 2nd grade that 0 times 0 equals 0, not 1,000. 0 times 4 equals 0, not 1,000. 0 times 351 still equals 0, not 1,000. So how did this happen? The problem with the NELA is that companies have started to abuse the law. The Nutrition Action and Health Letter, according to the Nutrition Action and Health Letter, Coffee Mate, a popular creamery that we all might use in our coffees in the morning, says on the label that there are 10 calories in 1 teaspoon, what a typical American might use. I use 5, but that's different. And that there is 0.5 grams of fat. However, when tested, there were 14.83 calories and 0.99 grams of fat. Those numbers seem really small and minuscule, like they won't matter, but the problem is that these things tend to add up. First and foremost, Americans already aren't able to properly identify how many calories are in food. This is again seen in the Nutrition Action Health Letter, where they said that the typical American underestimates the amount of calories in a meal by 600 calories. That is 1/3 of the amount that a woman is supposed to take according to the nationally recognized dietary recommendations. That 600 calories, if underestimated consistently for a year, leads to a 60 to 70 pound weight increase for that year alone. So we see that Americans don't know what's in food. And then those that choose to try and find what's in the food are lied to. So there are 2 impacts that stem from this. One is of a health aspect, and another is of economic importance. USA Today says that approximately 65% of Americans are overweight. According to the American Journal of Public Health, many people are unaware of what is in food. Again. And USA also estimates that this overweightedness costs America about $147 billion a year. That is 9.1% of all medical expenditures made in this country. To put that in perspective, you could buy 200 universities at $500 million apiece and still have $1 billion left over to give every single state money for food programs, let's say. The second problem with this is of economic importance, and that is that companies realize the marketability of items that have all of the same flavor and none or less of the calories or fat that were previously seen there. So companies try and strive to make their items more marketable to the common consumer. Except when these companies start lying, they also make it more difficult for companies that actually make healthier food. So that if Nestle decided to come out with a brand of butter that was quote unquote healthier than Coca-Cola, let's say, then you might buy the Nestle product rather than the healthier product. People associate brand names with better product, and companies know this and try and use that against you. We need to respond to this in a manner that New York has, where they made a law that mandates nutrition labels on menus of chains that have 20 nationwide locations and earn more than $1 million a year in revenue. I wish to extend this to the nation. Americans need to know what is in food. You need to know that when you go to Chili's and order the chicken pasta Alfredo, that there's 1,000 calories in that. You need to know that by the time you've done the 2 for $20 deal, it is more likely that 4,000 calories have touched your table. 4,000. We're supposed to eat 2 in a day. Second, I wish to say that rounding down should be banned. Rather, that rounding up should be the law, and that companies should have to report to the nearest tenth of a decimal, so that this non-existent zero that we see is gone, and we know exactly what is in food. There are 2 main arguments against this. One, that it will affect the creativity of certain restaurants in making specific types of food, and 2, that the cost of the labels is relatively high. In response to this, The Economist 2009 said that menu labeling encourages restaurants to make food in a creative manner, but in a more positive direction as well. Rather than find a way to hand you 4,000 calories on a table, they cut down. They find ways to make their food healthier for you. This is seen in Cosi, as they created a new menu with healthier items and lowered the calorie contents of some of its existing sandwiches. This can also be seen in Starbucks, McDonald's, Denny's, and Dunkin' Donuts, where they all have created less calorific items on their menus ever since New York enacted this law. Furthermore, in terms of the cost, these companies should be able to make some money from the increase in the number of people who would come because their food is healthier. If McDonald's food is just as healthy as a salad, you'd go to McDonald's. It tastes better to some people. It is for this reason that I believe that the Nutrition Education and Labeling Act needs to be revised in order to not only help our economy, but help Americans in their health in general. People are so worried about the obesity epidemic. We need to look at the causes, the root. And if this is one of the reasons, then it needs to be changed.